Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Caught on the Mic. I am Michael Clark. As somebody that came of age in the 80s and the 90s, there is a fair argument to be made whether it was a time of an artistic renaissance. Some of the best movies that we cite today came from that era. Some of the best TV shows that we talk about to this very day came from that era. Some of the best music that most of us still linger about on came from that era. My next guest is one of the Renaissance men of that time. He's a graffiti artist. He's a musician. He does a little bit of everything. He writes, but you know him best as Parker Lewis from the 90s show Parker Lewis Can't Lose, and also from Stargate SG-1. Corin Nemec joins me on Caught on the Mic today. As always, listener and viewer discretion is advised. I think you're going to enjoy this one. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of Caught on the Mic. I am Michael Clark, and I am so stoked because you know him as Parker Lewis from Parker Lewis Can't Lose. He's a graffiti artist. He is an all-around badass Renaissance man. Corin Nemec, thanks for joining me on the podcast today, my friend.
My pleasure. My pleasure. What a great job you did introducing me. I love it.
No, for real. I was doing like a cursory search of my Parker Lewis memories, and I will always know Abe as Kubiak. I don't care how many episodes of ER he did. Every time I was watching ER, I'm like, that's Kubiak, man. That's Kubiak.
Yeah, dude. He is quite a great guy as well. I have a show that I'm putting together right now, a new TV series, half-hour comedy, with some great people involved. I can't say what it's about, or I can't even say the name of it, but right. Currently I have Brian Green attached to it, David Faustino, myself, Vanessa Angel, Jason London, Abraham Ben Ruby, who we just spoke about, Ernie Reyes Jr. Yes. It's going to be an awesome show.
What a cast, dude.
Yeah, it's going to be a great show. It's, I really wanted to get as many of my close friends that were from that, 90s pop culture, the TV show. So, I mean, Brian Green from Beverly Hills 90210, Faustino from Married with Children, myself from Parker Lewis, and Abraham Ben Ruby, of course, from Parker Lewis, and Vanessa Angel, who was, is very well known from the 90s films that she starred in and the early 2000s films. So I'm super stoked. We'll catch back up on the mic down the road when this thing gets
hell
greenlit.
Yes, man. Hell yes. We got to talk about it. Well, let's take a step backward in order to take a step towards the present. You've got interests all over the place. Like you are a triple, quadruple threat, if you will. Your heart is in all sorts of form of the arts, whether it be acting or music or your graffiti work. Your Instagram for the 169 is a fun follow, man. I did a cursory search of Parker Lewis. I spent a lot of time on that Instagram, and I was like, dude, I love this stuff. This is the type of stuff I want for backdrops for the
cool,
podcast.
Man. Thanks.
So how did you come into graphic arts? Let's start there.
Well, yeah, the graffiti art scene for me really started out with just the hip hop culture in general. I was really into breakdancing, and me and my buddies had our own little kind of breakdancing crew back in Atlanta in the early '80s, and my nickname was Kid Cruz.
Awesome.
And I didn't know. I didn't know how evolved graffiti art had gotten being in Atlanta at the time. It just really hadn't in the early 80s. It really hadn't picked up steam there. And my graffiti art skills were quite rudimentary, although I was an artist in general. I love to draw and all of that. Both my parents are artists. My mom was a graphic artist in the music industry. And my father is a production designer in the film industry. And so I would do my name, Kid Cruz, in these silly little block letters with some arrows or some little bubble letters and stuff. And I had seen on the news when the graffiti writers, the famous graffiti writer Scene, had tagged the Hollywood sign. I mean, it made nationwide news. And I was like, what? Like, that's some crazy, that was just crazy to me. And sure enough, I ended up moving to Los Angeles within a couple of years of all of this, getting into the really getting into the breakdancing scene and
Right.
the graffiti kind of scene in a very rudimentary way. And my mom transferred her job from the Fox Theater in Atlanta to the Pantages Theater in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, which was both owned by the Nederlander company, Nederlander Group. And so I ended up in 8th grade in a graphic arts class that I was taking. A great teacher, Mr. Menendez at Walter Reed Junior High, was there. Coincidentally enough, the guy who really got me into acting was also in my class there, David Van Gorder, who was Waldo in the Hot for Teacher video by Van Halen.
Nice.
Yeah, man. And he was, he was the first person I met who was like a legitimate actor. And I really wanted to get into acting. I got into an acting class with him and so on. But also in that class were two really, really well-known graffiti artists at the time in LA, a guy named Spy 1000 from Metro Art Kings and this guy Vision.
Mm-hmm.
And Vision and Spy 1000, like their lettering, their characters, they were just like transformative to me. I mean, they were on a totally different level. I didn't realize what you could do with lettering,
right?
And with the characters, the B-boys and all of the stuff. I was like, what? Like, this is what you guys are doing?
Right.
Okay. And then the tagging scene was on a totally different level than like me and my buddies at Sparkles skate rink in Atlanta, with like some magic marker that I don't even know where I got it from, writing in stupid little bubble letters on the trash can behind the roller rink, And these guys were like getting up like, on freeways and billboards, and just like the whole scene was just really, really bananas in comparison to what I was used to, and I immediately just fell in love with it. I mean, all my close friends at the time were graffiti heads and in the hip hop culture and whatnot, and in fact, many of them as I grew up became relatively well known as well. Justin Warfield, who's in the band She Wants Revenge. Right. We were in the same graffiti crew in the 80s called The Chosen Few, which is still the graffiti crew that I'm in to this day.
Amazing.
And also David Arquette. He used to tag someone from a crew called KGB, Kids Gone Bad. And then Seth Binzer, may he rest in peace, from Shifty from Crazy Town. Yeah. He used to tag back from CBS crew, Can't Be Stopped. And we went to high school together, and other people too. Yeshi Pearl from Mickey Avalon. I actually did the photos for his first album as my photo.
That's amazing.
He tagged Pearl from CBS crew, and all these cats that I ran with, and I got really into it. It was my first real passion, even before acting, and that's why I stuck with it even throughout the highs and lows of being an actor, a professional actor, and different levels of celebrity and all of that stuff. I was still getting down with my graffiti art, but I was having to really keep it undercover. So I couldn't go as hard as I went when I was young. Before I became more well known, I had to change my name several times because I got caught. My first name was Extreme, EXTREEM, and I founded this crew called the Bomb Society with a couple of other buddies in 8th grade and TBS, and it became pretty well known. And I didn't get busted with Extreme, but they found out who I was and they were waiting to get me. And I was like, I'll just change my name to Chrome. So I started tagging Chrome, Krome, and I would still use Extreme when I was doing murals and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Chrome I got up really, really big with. I mean, I was very well known as Chrome, and I got busted pretty hard. I had like 200 and something hours of community service that I had to do, and it was better than going to juvenile hall.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? and so you know, I that's when I ended up changing my name to Pike, which I still use to this day.
Dope.
And you know, I don't really get you know, go as hard on the illegal stuff obviously anymore. Really, the street art scene is different. You know, I got into the street art scene in the early 2000s. Me and my buddy Surf from my crew TCF, we went back to the 80s, you know, together and everything. And
Right.
And we saw on a lot of the blog spots and a lot of the hype that was going on was really all about the street art. And a lot of the graffiti heads that we grew up with and that we knew were just really anti-street art, you know, anti-poster art, anti-stencil art, just like, you know, really shunning it. But me and Surf, we embraced it and decided like, well, what is our version of the stencil art? What is our version of the poster art and, you know, the stickers and all of that stuff, you know, and the sticker game back then was even kind of
Right.
frowned on, and now it's like every graffiti writer has a sticker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like now it's like just part of the culture. Whereas still the poster art and the stencil art is kind of it sort of wavers back and forth. But our crew TCF, it ended up you know, it didn't peter out, you know, because there was different groups of TCF. We had TCF in Las Vegas. We had TCF in San Diego. We had TCF in Oakland.
Jeez.
We got TCF down in Tijuana. And we have members of TCF now like worldwide. We're in Australia and Germany and France and the UK and in South Africa and many other cities across the US. Because once we got together in the early 2000s and started doing the street art, we kind of had a little meeting of the minds with a couple of the OGs from our crew, and our crew actually gave birth to AWR, which is Angels Will Rise, and that was a prolific crew which gave birth to the Seventh Letter, which is this kind of like a legendary art crew that does a lot of really high end graffiti art
Sure.
in the and regular art in the collectible community, you know, in the what do you call it? Pop art, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, so, you know, TCF was around, but we hadn't really been getting down in LA that hard since like the mid 90s. And so in the early 2000s, we had this meeting, and I was like, let's open up TCF to sticker heads, to stencil artists, to poster artists, and let's make this more of like an art collective.
Right.
And it expanded really, really quickly. I mean, it really blew up, because there was a respect for TCF as a crew, because we came out of we were a subset of this crew called KSN back in the 80s, King Stop at Nothing, which was a very, very well respected
Sure.
graffiti crew. And we really, you know, we had a great group of graffiti writers that were in our crew during that time period, and had a lot of respect. And so, you know, there was other cats in the culture who would love to get into a crew like
Right.
that, but they're like, I'm a poster artist, I'm a stencil artist. It's like, and we're like, no, let's open it up. And it blew up, and we had a lot of cats getting in from all overseas, and I cat in Japan even, and
Right.
you know, so it became a lot of fun, because then as I was traveling for work and stuff, when I'd be traveling overseas or I've been down to Australia like 26 times.
Mhm.
I'd get together with my crew members there, and Germany, get together with my crew members there, or France or wherever. And I'd be able to go out and put up my poster art and, you know, the stencils and things like that. And also get to paint at the same time, because
Right.
they would know where we could paint at. it really just reinvigorated my passion for graffiti art and for the whole scene and the whole culture, and that goes along with, like, obviously we talked about, like the 5 pillars of hip hop.
Yep.
You got your, your microphone, your dance style, your DJ skills, your dress code, and then your graffiti art, and so trying to represent all 5 of those pillars was sort of something that people strove for. The one thing I never really got was the DJing. I just wasn't very good at it. I didn't have the ear for mixing and the scratching thing. I was kind of, it sounded like a cat got a hold of the record, and but on the rap side, I got really into that too. Me and some of my buddies that I grew up with as well started a rap group called Starship of Fools, and Balthazar Getty was a part of that. He was our DJ, excellent DJ and producer, one of our primary producers, and Shane Mooney, who was Paul Mooney's son, is in that, and this guy named Tracy Mitchell from Oakland, he was in the crew, and we had a great theme to it, and it was. The album is actually out. I found the old recordings because they were kind of lost, but I found them and I put them up on BandLab and on and one other. What was the other one it's on? BandLab has the better mix. It sounds better on BandLab, but it's also on SoundCloud. And so if you search Starship of Fools or you look up I Am Corin Nemec, it should pop up if anybody's interested in listening to it. It was ahead of its time, I'll tell you that.
That's amazing. Did you find that being children born in the 70s, coming of age in the 80s and 90s, do you find that attitudes changed as people our age got into law enforcement and the illegal aspects of graffiti culture? Like, it's like, man, I can't bust this guy, man. I respect this shit too much.
No. I think I think what's kind of changed is that they, not that I want to be, get involved in any of that kind of that side of it, but back in the day, if you got caught by the cops, sometimes you were lucky if you got arrested back in the 80s, because it was not. There was a different. There wasn't the internet. Not everybody had cameras. There wasn't this whole thing. Right. So cops could kind of teach you their own version of a lesson, back then. But also the arresting juveniles was like a nightmare for the police departments back then too. And so they used to give you these things called scare cards. That's what we called them. That was the nickname for them back in the 80s. And there were these white slips of paper that they would write your information down on, what they caught you doing or whatever. And they'd give you a scare card and they keep this receipt for it, and but nothing ever happened.
Right.
So we would collect these things. You'd be like playing card games. Like, oh, how many scare cards you got? I got 10, or whatever,
That's like, awesome. It would be awesome to see like an online database of all the scare cards, like posted up someplace. That would just be amazing.
That would be. I should have kept mine, man.
But that's also how legends are made though, too, right? Like, because we didn't have the internet, because there weren't cell phones, because there wasn't instantaneous information, that's how the folklore would get built. And some of these big names would become developed or established to a certain degree, right?
Yeah, for sure, man. And the other side of it too was being a professional actor, but still being down with the whole subculture of hip hop and graffiti art and all of that. I had to walk this fine line of like, being this one person in the public eye and on set and doing all of that, which I'm passionate about. So I wasn't acting any different than how I acted in any other way, but I just wasn't like promoting the fact that I'm out there doing graffiti and stuff, because it's like, God forbid, when I'm working on Parker Lewis, the producers are going, wait, what if he gets arrested for doing graffiti? And it just like, they could freak out. But I was still painting, like for at least the first couple of years of Parker Lewis, I was still out painting and getting up here and there. I was so busy, I didn't have as much time, but it was fun because I was doing a lot of traveling then. And for doing promotional stuff and everything. Right. And I'd always bring my little tagging kit with me, my mean streak and my marker and whatever else. And so, when I get time to myself, I could split from the hotel in Philly or in Detroit or New York or wherever I was and go and slip out on the streets for a few and catch a couple of quick tags.
That's amazing. What is it? This is kind of peeling the onion back a little bit and kind of tapping into a sense of nostalgia to a certain degree. But a lot of the people that you ran with or associated with, like Brian, like Balthazar, and like honestly, a good example, a perfect time capsule was Soleil's Kid 90 movie, was like looking at that group of people in particular. What was it about that generation and that group of people that had that sense of renaissance with the culture?
Well, I think that there wasn't as much to be distracted by. That's one thing.
Right.
And also being real was important to a lot of us.
Yes.
And if we were going to ride hard, it didn't mean that, okay, suddenly I'm an actor. I'm not going to, what does that mean? I'm not who I am. I'm not like, I can't represent. Right. I can't, still go hang out with the same dudes I hung out with and, go drink a 40 at the park instead of whatever, Right. So, it was funny though, because at a young age, I mean, I was getting into, like even in my 12th grade year of high school, we were like going to the Roxbury, and the Formosa Cafe and the Dresden Room and all these kind of iconic Hollywood places where they really didn't care how old you were. They would right. serve you anyway. So it was pretty funny because I kept a low profile in a lot of ways in my public school and that I went to at Walter Reed North Hollywood High School. And I didn't promote that I was an actor at all. I didn't that's not the hat that I wore around. I loved acting and that was what I loved to do. But I was, the graffiti kid, and that was really the embodiment of who I represented in my normal everyday life. So, but at the same time, I'd be like, some of my buddies would be like, yeah, we're going to this house party in Encino or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to the Roxbury.
Right. I have very similar conversations with several people because I've got high school kids. Like all my kids are all in high school. Actually, I've got twin stepdaughters that are seniors. My daughter is a senior and my son is a sophomore, right? And I look at the shit they get into these days, and it is so like wholesome and innocent compared to our generation. Because I was the same way, man. I'd go into the local bar and I could get served at 16, 17 years old, and I took full advantage of that. But I see these kids and they're all playing Fortnite in my basement on a Friday night. I'm like, you guys, I don't know whether to be proud or be like, how lame are you guys?
Yeah. I think that it's my son's really into hip hop. He's got some great stuff out as well.
That's awesome.
He goes by Grump, and when he first played me his stuff a couple years back, I was apprehensive at first because you just never know, and he was really good. I mean, really good. I raised him in Houston. And he's got that dirty South, Houston,
oh, sweet,
cadence to his rapping style. He's got some stuff out on both of those on platforms as well under Grump, Grump. If anybody wants to look him up, but I hooked him up with a couple of my buddies out in LA. A guy named Kevin Hicks, who's in a group called Gumbo, and we've been friends since I was 13 years old. Amazing rapper, and he's getting into management along with Shane Mooney, who's a huge club promoter out there, does all the big clubs and everything. And but they're starting a management firm right now called 12M, and it looks like my son is going to be the first act that they sign.
Congrats!
And it has nothing to do with it has nothing to do with the fact that he's my son or not, because Kevin and Shane are as raw and as old school as humanly possible as you can get. They don't blow smoke. And when I sent them the music, Kev at first thought that I was sending him some beats to listen to. And he was like, yeah, those beats are dope, but who's that rapping? And I was like, that's my son. That's why I sent him to you. He's like, what? I was like, yeah, dude. So, I'm stoked for him. He's going to get out to LA soon. If everything works out right, and he'll be in the studio in the next couple months and doing some real rhyme, and not just in his room on his desk mic.
That's amazing. That's always a rewarding experience when your kids kind of find their own voice and find their own sound. And yeah, I'm going through something very, very similar. So, taking one more step backwards before we move forward, what do you think about we touched on the idea of authenticity and being real, and that's kind of what our generation based itself on. Do you feel that society at large is still that way? Or do you feel that, being a little bit more artificial and fake has been promoted, and, we've kind of passed that era of art that was real and raw and authentic?
Yeah, well,
it's a loaded question. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, when it's hard to tell who's real now when you got the whole P. Diddy thing going on.
Right, no shit.
You're like, wait a second. Are you really a gangster?
Right.
I think that the rawness of that time period, that transition out of the party rap kind of stuff where hip hop started, and that kind of evolved into, different layers of hip hop, that hip hop got taken over by the music corporations and stuff. And they steered it in a direction that organically it wasn't going in. It was going more towards what we used to kind of call intelligent hip hop, like the X-Clan and Leaders of the New School, and I'm not even so much them, but Souls of Mischief and Poor Righteous Teachers.
Yes.
Obviously KRS-One and Public Enemy. There's Eric B. and Rakim. I mean, Rakim's lyrics are enlightening. You know what I mean? And
yes.
And that was the direction kind of that it was going in. Brand Nubian is another example of that. Jungle Brothers. If it had been allowed to evolve organically in the direction it was going, I think it would have been transformative for the inner city as much as the gangster rap took over, and that's what was being promoted and that's what was being sold. And then what did that do for the inner city? And also then you on the flip side of that, you had all these suburbanites acting gangster and trying to emulate that whole lifestyle and that kind of that way of behaving and talking and everything else, So and now it's hard to tell who's real and not real until you're with them in person, until you go and see how they live and hang out with them and all of that. And again, that's why I've stuck with the cats that I grew up with, and the graffiti culture is very real still to this day. So when I travel and I connect up with graffiti writers in different countries or different cities, I was just shooting a movie called Myra down in Tijuana recently, and cats from my crew, Torso and Wonder, and some other cats that are in the TJ clique, we went out and painted while I was down there with those cats. And, they're as raw and real as you can get, and that keeps me grounded, not being aloof and living in this fantasy world of, I'm Corin Nemec. I'm like this actor, getting all weird and everything, start dressing in boas and, whatever, getting a little too creative. But, so the sticking with the graffiti culture, the graffiti scene, and all the dudes that I grew up with has kept me, locked into just being me, without trying to put on any kind of show for anybody. I don't have to. and also my teacher that I studied with for 15 years, Manu Tupou, I wrote a book about his technique called the New Era Acting Technique, that's out on lulu.com, called How to Create a Character for the Stage or Life. And his technique was antithetical to the method or anything else. It was all creation and all this, but it was a spiritual psychology in a way, because what he was introducing us to was the fact that personality is something that gets programmed into us. And, a spiritual essence is going to come out, and people are going to perceive it as a personality.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that you're behaving as a personality complex, meaning all of the, what you've learned from your teachers, what you've learned from your preacher, what you've learned from your parents, what you've learned from this, that, the other, all of that collects together and solidifies into this idea of who we think we are. And his objective was to strip that away and toss it out and be like, no, you're a blank slate. That's what he used to, the term he used to use. You have to be the blank slate. And then when you become a character for film and television, then you can start adding those things to the character that you want to make it, really come to life. And you can do that in life too. You don't have to be this character that's been created for you. You know what I mean? It's like and he used the reference to the fact that an actor can, put on a British accent, or can become a hobo, he can be from New York, or he can be from Alabama, or all of these different things with the dialectic cadence, with the mannerisms, with the different look, with the different posturing, and all of these kind of things. It's so believable that you're like, wow, I believe that guy is that guy. Yeah. And then they get off set and they're like, hey, what's up, buddy? And that's how it is in life, because some people get so locked into their character that they can't change the way that they talk. They can't change their accent. They can't change their mannerisms. They can't change their general behavior or reactions or whatever it is, and that's, and to me, once I had that aha moment in his class, was like, oh shit, I could have been lost. I could have lost myself in some character whether I created the character for me and got locked into it and believed that it was real, or it was created for me by my environment, by my life experience, and by everything that I learned, is going, okay, dude, I can disagree with all of that. I have that power to say, no, I'm not that. I'm not the name that I was given at birth. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm a spiritual being, and that's the main, the main thing that I've always kept myself attached to, and that keeps me grounded as well, because I don't, I can see when the reactionary side of me is trying to come out, or when when that aspect of personality wants to take over and run the show, and whenever that happens, it rarely does it turn out well.
Right. No, that's absolutely the truth. The other day I had Eric Bass from Shinedown. He's the bass player with the last name Bass. That's crazy. But he's the bass player from Shinedown. And he and I were talking about it. And the analogy that I used is, right now the world is pro wrestling, and nobody knows where the shoot begins or the work starts, or when the work ends and the shoot begins. Right? Like, because of that, because we are in such a reactionary state. And coincidentally, one of my side hustles that I do is I'll call MMA fights. I'll be sitting cage side, and
that's cool. Right on.
The cage side commentary. And my buddy that was my co-host at one of the last events, Bud Crawford, was sitting right behind us, number one fighter in the world, and we wanted to get a shot with him, but my buddy couldn't open his phone because he installed this app on his phone that makes him wait 30 seconds before he's able to access anything on his phone. And that's to control that reactionary behavior.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. That's an interesting trick. I mean, if you needed an app to control it, I don't know.
I don't know, dude, man. The younger version of myself, because this kid's quite a bit younger than me, the younger version of myself would have needed an app.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we didn't have all of this technology and everything back in the day. I mean, for me, it would have been, I mean, I love privacy. I love anonymity. I don't, I've kind of, in some ways, I mean, I've remained a working actor throughout my entire life.
Right.
The only year that I went really not working was after I got into a terrible boat wreck filming in
Right.
Belize, and I was unable to work because I was learning how to walk again. So
Right.
but besides that, it's been consistent. I have some great projects that have come out recently as well. One I'm very proud of called Place of Bones, starring opposite Heather Graham, with Tom Hopper in that as well. And it's a talk about creating a character. The character I play, Calhoun, in that is I mean, what a guy, what a what a particular personality this thing is. And
Right.
it's well worth watching. And I have one that just came out recently called I Feel Fine. It's a tragic story about teen suicide and parents who have to deal with that, and it's a very difficult movie to watch. But again, the stark difference between the two characters in those is pretty telling. And then I had another film come out not that long ago that I also wrote and produced called Deadly Justice. It's on Tubi now, and it's a fun movie. We had a $225,000 budget, but I thought we did very good with it. I had a really
Awesome.
nice cast, and that's out there right now too. And then this new one that's coming out, hopefully sometime this year, hopefully within the next few months, Joe Baby, with Deacon Lockman and Harvey Keitel, Ron Perlman, and I
Right.
have a nice little role in that, which is fun. But and then another one that came out recently, Day Labor, which is an interesting thriller that's gotten some good viewing, and there's other ones too, man. I've been doing so many that I forget now. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot I did that. Yeah, that's right, I got that. So the one I just shot down in Tijuana, Myra, is an action adventure, great film with the
Right.
same director who did Day Labor, and Fraser. He's a great guy. In fact, one of my scripts I wrote, we're partnering up on, and hopefully we'll be making that sometime this year.
Well, I was going to ask about that. I saw a few posts you threw up this week announcing some new projects. Like, do you ever get downtime, man?
Too much. I mean, if I could, I'd be a hell of a lot busier. I mean, I stay very active because I enjoy producing and writing. Writing, I really love. I got another project also right now that I'm putting together that hopefully we'll have funding next week for it. We'll see if everything goes well. But it's a mockumentary, a horror comedy. And yeah, it's I wish I could say the title of it and all of that stuff, but it's got to stay on the
Understood.
down low. But
We'll have
it's
to come back on and talk
yeah,
about it.
100%. But it's very funny. It's just in the same vein as all the other mockumentaries. But and it would be soft scripted as well, meaning that there's not really any dialogue written. It'd be improv, and we would
Oh,
follow the
that's
whole
dope.
thing like a real documentary, like you would.
Yeah.
And then a great group of actors that I've pulled together for it. Everybody will just become their characters, and then we'll just go through the scenarios as they're scripted, and whatever happens, happens. I mean, it's a roll of the dice, but I'm excited about it.
So, if you were to kind of take a step back and look at your career in 1993 and think about Corin in 1993 versus Corin in 2025, like, how do you view the two different versions of yourself considering your body of work?
I like the version that I am now far more than the version that I had projected for myself back
Right.
then.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if I had, and that all really is because I met Manu Tupou and studied in his class for 15 years until he passed away in 2005. And if it was, in fact, my son's middle name is Manu, named after him. That's how much I love this guy. And if it wasn't for him, I think I would have gone down that road of becoming this character,
Right.
this caricature of myself, rather, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And but and back then I just, certainly I saw myself as a working actor and all of that, but kind of in that weird sort of Hollywood way, I kind of pictured a different version of me in this Hollywood kind of glamorizing type of a thing. And, and fortunately that never manifested, because
Mm-hmm.
I would prefer to be, I also didn't embrace the whole selling myself, like trying to always be out there and be in the public and be on this show and that talk show and in this paper and this rag. I stopped using a publicist after Parker Lewis, because I just didn't like the way that I was being represented, and I didn't feel like it was
Yeah.
authentically me. And I think that might have hurt my career in some ways. But when I look back, I've never stopped working. I mean, sure,
Right.
after I did Stargate, yeah, I did a whole slew of sci-fi originals that are, some of them are fairly unwatchable, but I enjoyed every damn one because
Oh,
I
for
love to
sure.
act, and some of them were really good. I mean, the ones that I produced, I thought turned out better than the ones I just acted in.
Right.
But it was, for me, any opportunity to create a character and deliver a character for a production is an opportunity to see if I can deliver something that wasn't necessarily on the page, or make the film better because I did a good performance, or hopefully a great performance.
Yeah.
But and I think that's one of the reasons why I've been able to maintain um, consistency as an actor, as well as because I've stepped outside the box of just being like a guy on the street for hire, and really worked on producing, material for myself, and writing material for either myself or for others. I mean, I just had a film that I wrote that came out last year called Dead Man's Hand, that's starring Stephen Dorff and Cole Hauser and Jack Kilmer. And the part that I played in it didn't have one line of dialogue. And I wrote the film along with Brian Skiba, the director. But but for me, the most exciting part was seeing my name up there as a writer. I was like, that's so fun. That's what I love. I love that. That's huge to me.
Yeah, man. It's like I wish more people would do that and take autonomy over the art and just like, live through it, because it sounds like that's what you have done and what has kept you working and kept your head above water to a certain degree, because there's a level of sanity that comes with controlling what you're a part of too, right?
Yeah, yeah, there is. I mean, the hustle is real. I mean, I can tell you that. The other side of it is that if I see a script that has a very small budget to it, that talks to me, then I'm willing to do it. Even if the pay is garbage, I'll be
Right.
like, you listen, what am I doing? I'm sitting around, my office writing scripts. I can be out there acting in a movie that's produced right now, and I might as well, take these jobs. And fortunately for me, the most of them have turned out really, quite good for
Yeah.
small independent features. And then, creating shows for myself too. I mean, me and Jason London created a show called Blackwater Blues that the pilot episode is on my YouTube channel, Corin Nemec TV. And it's one of those things where, we spent all this blood, sweat, and tears and shot this pilot, and it turned out great, and did the whole entire, Bible for it, and it's all ready to go. It's ready for TV, and to get eyeballs on it was like, it's so difficult to get it in an actual room with somebody, to get it, in front of the right person to say, yeah, good. Because I had the experience doing that with David Faustino years ago when we did a TV show for Sony Television and Crackle called Starving, this
Yeah.
ridiculous comedy, and we pitched to so many different people. We had great representation over at UTA, and that's how we got in the room. But it's I got to tell you, as a professional actor, it's difficult to get good literary representation, because it seems to me that everything is very compartmentalized in the film
Right.
business, so As many times as I've been with some of the bigger agencies that had lit departments, it was like impossible to get them to get me in with the lit department. I'm like, I'm already represented over here. Why am I not? Why aren't you guys? What's going on? So I had to just go outside of the whole system and just do things on my own, you know?
Yeah. Mad respect for that, for sure. For sure. Now, you've been doing a lot of podcasts lately. You know, when you consider the different seasons of your life, do you find it hard to tap into what your mindset was when you were, say, doing a show like Parker Lewis or Stargate versus some of your more recent projects? And the only reason I ask that is I think about it in contrast of my own life, like different musical projects I was a part of, or, you know, different things with my parenting life or my professional life and this, that, and the other thing, where I'm just like, you know, I could tell you about that thing, but my memory is like rose tinted glasses only. So
yeah, I used to love wearing rose tinted shades back in the day, actually. But you know, I think the only thing that I look back on, everything's very vivid for me, and I take my jobs very seriously. You know, I show up on time, I show up prepared, and I show up to have a good time while I'm there and to support the project and not be some weird dude in his dressing room who everybody's afraid to knock on the door. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, I want to be a team player. That's a whole part of it. And that's how I was on all of the, you know, on those shows. It's the only thing that I do miss really is the consistency. Being as a regular on a TV series, you kind of know what your year looks like, and maybe your next couple of years or whatever, you know. And that's the greatest blessing in our industry, to be able to sit back and do what you love to do and know how long you're going to be doing it for. Because nowadays, the way the movies go, I mean, hell, I used to do movies of the week back in the 80s and 90s, and we had 5-6 week shooting schedules, and, you know, $2 to $3 to $4 million budgets for a TV movie. And now I'm doing TV movies, and you have a 12-day shooting schedule and $500,000 or less. You know what I mean? So it's like, wow, times have changed. But for me, it's the same feeling when I'm on set, though. It's the same enthusiasm and excitement, especially if it's something that I'm producing, co-producing, or writing and producing, or whatever. And that adds even more importance to it for me on a daily basis. You know, just knowing that I'm not just a cog in the wheel of somebody else's, you know, dream. I'm a cog in the wheel of my own dream, which is far more beneficial to me spiritually. You know, I get a lot out of that.
What's your great white buffalo? What's the one thing that you haven't done yet that you would love to do? That one role, that one project. It can be movies, TV, music, graffiti, whatever. What's that one thing you haven't done yet that you still aim to accomplish?
I guess two things. I would love to. I wrote a book called Venice High that's also on Lulu.com, and it's a kind of a novella, and it's loosely based on my life growing up as a graffiti writer in North Hollywood, except it takes place in Venice Beach because it's more exciting. And and, you know, but I ended up, you know, taking that and developing it into a pilot, and did develop a TV show for it and all that, and wasn't able to get that sold yet either. But I would love to do something that is in that world. You know, that would be very exciting to me. Even if I was just acting in it, you know, like if they did a redo of Turk 182 and they were like, yeah, we want you to play Turk, I'd be like, yes, even though I'm too old to play Turk now. But the other thing too is I've always wanted to do a film that takes place during the Middle Ages, you know, during the medieval times. And that's just something that I was a huge fan of the movie Excalibur when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And like that movie just blew my mind. And I've always wanted to be able to be in something that takes place during that time period. I haven't written anything that takes place during that time period. I thought of one thing that was about this. I read. I can't remember where I read it. It was either an article or I was just surfing the web or whatever. But about this hilarious court jester who used to every time he would do one of his jokes, he'd leap in the air and whistle and fart, and he'd go. And like that would be like, how he do it. And this is a real dude. He was very famous. He like
right.
he retired with a good amount of money for a court jester back then, and they had a lot of leeway with the powers that be, because they were really the only person that was allowed to make fun of the king or the people in the king's council or whatever. He was like the stand-up comedian of his day, and I started doing a bunch of background research to write a comedy in the Middle Ages about this famous court jester. And but it just I kind of got swamped with some other shit, and it sort of went on the back burner.
That would be amazing. Well, man, my closing question, it's my favorite question to ask everybody because I get such a wide range of diverse answers. But what is your advice for making the world a better place tomorrow than what it is today through your eyes?
I'd say my best advice is to be kind to yourself so you can be kind to others, and just know that, I mean, whether you believe it or not, know that you're a spiritual being and you're connected to something much bigger than this physical world around us. This is the manifestation of something much bigger that's going on behind the scenes. This is the projection. We're looking at the shadows on the cave wall right now, and we're not seeing the light that's making the shadows. And it's, I would say, practice being the light, and then make some great shadows.
Dope, man. Tell my audience where they can find you and your projects, my friend.
Yes, I use the name letter I, letter M, and then my name Corin Nemec. So it's I'm Corin Nemec, and that's pretty much across all the platforms. It's Instagram, it's on X, it's on Facebook. My YouTube channel obviously is Corin Nemec TV. You can find I Am Corin Nemec there on the SoundCloud and BandLab as well. There might be some other ones out there that I forgot about that I forgot I set up and haven't done anything with. But then also on the graffiti side, if you're interested, you can check out at the 169, and that's on that's the numbers 1, 6, and 9 with D in front of it, and that's on Instagram. That's where I post all my stuff for the last however many years that I've been posting on there. You get quite an adventure around the world there. But and then also if you look up Flint Public Art Foundation, they're putting out a graffiti. I did one of their graffiti mural festivals there a year or so ago, and one of my paintings is in their book. So you can get their book if you look up Flint Public Art Foundation online. You can find it, and then their book will be there, and you can order it, and I'll have my art in that book. And if you are interested in some of my writing, you can go to lulu.com and search Corin Nemec. Venice High won't come up because I published it under my birth name for some stupid reason. So Joseph C. Nemec IV. Then you can find Venice High. But under Corin Nemec, you can find the acting book, How to Create a Character for the Stage and Film. You can find 3 books of poetry, different kinds of styles, and a bunch of scripts that I've published just for fun that haven't been made yet. Some cool stories there to read. And I did all the artwork for all of these things, all the cover art and everything I did myself, the graphic design, and all the scripts are hardcover. So, they're kind of collectible. They got a nice feel to them, glossy coating and all that stuff. So check it out.
I love that, man. Dude, thanks for giving me your time tonight. I'm glad we're connected. I'm glad to call you a friend now. Man, the world is a much better place with you in it, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope to stay in it for a very long time.
No, for real. When these other projects flesh themselves out, you know who your guy to call.
Oh yeah,
is.
we'll do a follow-up, no doubt. Absolutely.
Oh, thanks for doing the show, my friend.
You bet, Mike.